Hey, welcome back to Laurence McKenna channel, where I join you from sunny-ish northern Italy, where Liverpool have just won 3-0 at Anfield against Bournemouth. 2 goals from Díaz, 1 from Darwin Núñez. Plenty to unpack in this game, and mainly because Bournemouth are actually underlying a pretty decent team, really well coached, really great tactical observations on their part. They know the soft underbelly of most of the sides in the Premier League, and despite their stuttering form at the start of the season with draws against people like Newcastle and Forest, and I think, who else did they draw against? They also lost against West Ham and Chelsea. They got the win against Everton, not really that much of an achievement. But the point is, right, these guys have still got great tactical nous. They've still got really good ideas on how to go forward. And Semenyo and a couple of other people who have surprised Liverpool down the years have got the ability to take that back line apart. And I want to talk a little bit about this because there is a really split fan base at the moment in Liverpool over whether Liverpool are playing well, whether the tactics are going well, whether the players have improved, or whether we've just profiled certain strong players within the team who have reacted really well to Slot's tactics, or whether he's the other way around and actually we're just playing our strongest team. For me, there are a couple of different approaches to this one. First of all, I think there are some very obvious lines of attack against Arne Slot's back line. It seems as if running across it certainly confuses or tries to pull out of position the players that are already in position. Konate and Van Dijk, that's what you want to do, is pull those guys out of position. They're such strong centre-backs, and all 4 of those guys in the back line, including Trent and including Robertson, and obviously Kelleher in this one, are such strong players that really you have to target the mass of them rather than the one individual. And I get it, like, of course you'd rather go down Konate's side with Trent than you would with, say, a Robertson or someone like that and Van Dijk. But the point is, right, you have to try and pull them all over the place and confuse them. You have to get in between the 2 centre-backs and the 2 holding midfielders and try to conjure something from that. Now, what worried me a little bit in this game was that Bournemouth actually did manage to get something from that. They did manage to create numerous chances, and I don't think this was as cut and shut as a 3-0 to Liverpool. Don't bother thinking about anything else. Obviously, we've got a lot of things to think about in terms of positives, and I will talk about those positives in a second, but I wanted to get a few of these things away at the top. First of all, yes, there are elements of the system which I think would present as weaknesses. Are they long-term weaknesses? You'd obviously hope not, because the more the coaching happens to the players, the more the players are coached, the more they're going to get used to defending in the way that Arne Slot wants them to defend, and also just move in the way that he wants the whole team to move. So hopefully not as many gaps appear, even when the opposition are experienced at trying to attack a system like Liverpool's, right? But also, Liverpool play a 4-2-4. Including the goalkeeper, it's a 1-4-2-4, and I get that, right? I think it's really important to point out that is a relatively common shape for modern teams to press and play in, out of possession. In possession, slightly different, but we can talk about that in a second. That means that teams are going to be used to attacking and trying to undo elements of these systems, but what that means is that Slot himself will be able to coach and get better results out of these kind of players because they're within the shape, right, that they want to perform, and he's going to do things that other coaches won't do, right? That's very important. On the other side of that, he's now trying to fit a couple of other players into this. So Kelleher as a goalkeeper, I don't think he's a particularly bad backup. I think if anything, he's a starting goalkeeper we've got as a backup. Fantastic. He's not a problem. I do think there are times where Kelleher's caught in weird positions, and there are times where you sort of think, maybe he could have been a bit further over, but those are small coachable weaknesses which really we're nitpicking. Van Dijk, I think, again, very strong. Konate, again, very strong. He had some incredible stats today. Konate, for me, I'm not saying he's better than Van Dijk. I think he's one of those players who, because of where he's at, because of where I feel his ceiling is, and because of the style of play where he's at the moment, he seems so key to the way that Liverpool want to play, it's hard to rotate and drop him out of the team. The same goes for Trent. Trent is playing as a right-back right now. Maybe a right-sided quarterback, but a right-back out of possession. And Robertson is clearly playing as that, like, very tough left-back. Most of their things come from a counter-attack or, say, a set piece which they can try and make work. Corners, those kind of things. You saw the save late on. You saw the other save that he had at the near post. You have to go in between, against Liverpool, the full-backs and the centre-backs. Very rarely do you see anything come right down the centre because Konate and Van Dijk just eat it up. Or you have to get something from a corner. And at the moment, people haven't been able to judge Slot's corners in any particular fashion, because they're so new to those systems and where Liverpool place their players. What I would say about this is Liverpool in particular need to be cognizant of the fact that A, you're playing up against them, so people like AC Milan will try and counter-attack against them. Bournemouth definitely tried to get at Liverpool early. That's seen as a bit of a weakness. I think it's also seen as a bit of a weakness of slots overall, that very often these teams can go out there and kind of keep you on the end of a jab until they work out where they're going to go with you. But I'll talk about the opposite side of that in a second. And the point is, against a stronger team or a team that's going to take their opportunities, maybe with a slightly classier striker, you'll see Liverpool go 3-3, 3-2, something like that, right? And it'll feel like a slightly more punch-for-punch game. I don't mind that. Then the other way happens. Konate, with that ball out the back, very often either to Salah or Díaz, works. It feels a little Klopp-like, but this is Slot-like. And with Díaz in the team, with Salah in the team, with the ball coming down, they're very good at moving the centre-backs away or the full-back they're on and getting inside. With Darwin Núñez in the team, that works even better because, well, very often Jota's the guy who actually drops a little deeper and they're running off. Now it's the other way around, where Salah's then going inside Núñez, and we see the goal come from that. We see, obviously, the space that Núñez creates for himself, the incredible kind of one-of-a-kind strike that he's got with that right, that was a left foot, right? That he cut inside on and then, you know, gets down on the outside. It's pretty incredible, actually, because very early on he felt very one-footed, and he's very much brought his other foot into the game now, brought it into his repertoire. He felt much more right-footed when he first came into the team because of where he was playing. This rotation with Salah speaks to something else, right? And it is very clear for me. Slot sees a set of players who he's already coached to a certain level and can execute the plan he wants. These other players who are coming in, not even Tsimikas actually, but Núñez, midfielders, just anyone else who's coming into the side, even Cody Gakpo, need to be coached to play the style of football that Slot wants them to, and he needs to find where they're going to thrive the most. I think that's really key to point out here. It's not that he doesn't think they're good. It's not that in the long term they aren't fantastic players. It's not that he can't make them fit into the side. Similar to what I was saying with Curtis Jones the other day, you can see a narrative where, hey, this guy needs to leave, but also the opposite of that, where it's kind of like, look, this guy needs to stay because coached by Slot, there are so many different weapons that he has, and he's a real change in the midfield shape. I think that's a perfectly reasonable thing to say. But Díaz has been the jewel in Slot's crown, along with Konate, I think, early on in this season. Díaz's movement, Díaz's nous, and kind of a weird amount of like, hey, he worked in a Klopp system, he works in an intense system, he's been coached to a certain intensity degree, he's now thriving under Slot because of the change in his position, because of the freedom he's been given, because of the way that he can obviously strike the ball, because of the freedom, the weapons free almost that he's got to like, hey, do what it is you need to. Salah felt a little bit more restrained in this game. Some people blaming the international break for that, some people also just saying Salah's playing a slightly more, not restricted role, but how can I put it, a slightly more, it's not even reduced. He's basically playing a role where he is slightly more controlled, and Díaz is the slightly more out there one. Núñez similar to that, where it's kind of like, you know, someone has to play the mature holding head in that front line who's going to do the movement. Salah did that today over Núñez and Díaz, who would then have the license to roam out there and play a little more free, a little more out there. I like that. Now let's get to that midfield three that I've not even mentioned yet. First of all, getting behind them reaps rewards. But they're learning to defend from behind players even better than they were before. Under Klopp, obviously, they pressed and they're very good at looping their leg around. It seems as if they've been trained in a very specific kind of pressing and winning the ball back. Winning the ball back standing up, hey, a Zubimendi quality. Winning the ball back and then turning it around very quickly, hey, a Zubimendi quality. And they're doing it in a very Slot-ish way, which works really well. But it's clear this team has been drilled for years and is really good at executing sets of plays, which Slot wants them to, because they've had the preschool in this, the prep school, the foundation years of Klopp, putting them through so many of those paces, and Pep Lingers. And now with Slot, there was a fresh approach, there was a fresh, slightly different idea that they're able to execute extremely well at this point. I just wonder if against stronger teams, and we'll see that in the coming weeks, that works. Whether City can work this out, whether Arsenal can work this out, whether Champions League teams can work this out. Milan tried to match them up. It didn't seem to go particularly well for Milan, and, you know, understandably so. Milan are a side that appeared to be at least one, maybe two levels lower than Liverpool in terms of the Champions League levels. Doesn't mean they're like first division. But the point with that is, I still want to see them, like, it's not that I want to see them challenged and fail. I want to see them challenged and step up to the challenge. This momentum that they're getting is fantastic. But the challenge was there against Forest and they didn't step up, or they didn't manage to execute in the way they needed to. I still think that leaves a few question marks over the very ceiling of this side and where it is that they can get to, right? That's where it is questionable for me. I'm not saying they're not capable, it's that you have to do it practically. You can't do it as well. In theory, they will beat this team because they've beaten this team. Forest stopped them, other teams have stopped them, other teams have frustrated them, and they've managed to work it out in game, as has Slot. But there are going to be games where that doesn't happen. You know, it's like Real Madrid. What are we going to do against Madrid? Are we going to be, you know, what tactical adjustments are we going to make? How on the fly are we going to be able to play them? How well are we going to be able to counteract some of what it is that they're doing? I'll be interested to see where that thought comes in. With Klopp, they were able to make some of those adjustments. With Klopp, they were able to counteract some of this just through sheer intensity, just through sheer execution, sheer observations that Klopp and Linders and all these other previous coaches were making about the opposition. Slot is clearly capable of making those observations, but I want to see them come through. Now, Gravenberch and McAllister, let's talk about that. Finish on this midfield. The runner is always going to have the hardest role and the most in and out of the game role. So Szoboszlai, I can always kind of forgive some of the mistakes that he makes or some of the intensity that he has. He needs to execute, right? Gravenberch is now playing to such a level that I feel he is able to, he's gone up 2 or 3 levels already. I feel there are more levels for him to go up, right? And McAllister is enabling that, and that is very much fair enough, right? I think he's a fantastic player who is so thoughtful to the other players around him. And that's why I'm worried that maybe Slot is slightly reticent to break up this midfield 3 in any big game. Let me just go through some of these fixtures we've got next, right? Because I think it's interesting. He's going to have to play next against West Ham. That comes 2 days from now? 4 days from now. Then Wolves. Then Bologna at Anfield, the first of those Champions League games. Then Palace, then Chelsea, then Leipzig. Fascinating game, that one. Absolutely fascinating to see how they play a team like Leipzig, especially when Leipzig, just where Leipzig are going to be at that point in the season. They've won a couple of early games and they've had a bit of a dip more recently. What will they be able to do? I'm looking forward to seeing how Liverpool begin to manage games, basically, is what I'm saying. And then I think the real tactical tests are going to, is Leipzig. I know Chelsea are going to be a real tactical test, but the real, like, hey, where are we at? It starts from Chelsea, Leipzig, Arsenal, Brighton, Leverkusen, Villa. That's a run there. And that is what I pointed out before, the November. So what I just wanted to kind of point out was, I don't feel that Liverpool have had to punch above their weight yet. They've not had to like match someone up shot for shot. I can't wait to see that. They've been frustrated against Forest and they got Nuno'd. That's not the same thing as being Real Madrided. So I'd be interested to know what you guys think. Gravenberch, level above. McAllister is showing how world class he is. Not only through stats, but just through reading the play, through adjusting on the fly. They're still able to get in behind them, and there are times where you can see that the team don't freeze, but they sort of go, oh, what are we doing here? Where are we going with this? I just want to see them deal with these things in game. West Ham is a good opportunity to do that and run out a couple of other players, possibly test a few lineups in the EFL Cup. Then we're playing Wolves away. Then we've got Bologna. So going to be an interesting couple of days. Let me know what you guys think, and I will chat to you again real soon, right here on Laurence McKenna on LFC channel. Much love. Bye.